It's the Pete Sousa Show. Sports, Pete.
Oh, come on now. We're live. We are live. The 21st floor of the Alico building. It is the Pete Sousa Show here from Central Texas, presented by our good friends at Slovakics and, of course, Crawford Austin Properties. The microphone over here, that would help. We're going to re-rack it and start it again. Hey, everybody. We are live. It's the Pete Sousa Show, 21st floor from the Alico building. We'd like to thank Zach Burke for getting the audio correct on the Wheels of Steel today. Zach is a jack of all trades, and he's about to be a dad pretty soon. We'll continue to keep you posted on that story as we gather more information, as they say in the news business. Slovakics, thank you very much for presenting the Pete Sousa Show. Also like to thank anybody who is involved in watching right now, and Crawford Austin Properties, another presenting sponsor, making this possible. And, of course, you see him right here, Socorro Family Ford, D1. That's where I used to get swole and why I'm too skinny now because I stopped going. And the First National Bank of Central Texas. We are here witnessing the aftermath of the first coach being fired in the NFL season. The Jets fired Robert Saleh earlier today. Defensive coordinator Jeff Ulbrich will be the interim coach. You remember Jeff Ulbrich having a cup of coffee as the 49ers head coach. A lot of thoughts about the Robert Saleh dismissal. First, though, what we know. The team is 2-3, and they have one of the best quarterbacks of all time on their roster in what could be the end of his career. Aaron Rodgers has looked very impressive at times this year, just as far as accuracy and throws are concerned. Last week, throwing 2 interceptions in the first quarter of his team's game in London, their loss to Minnesota. That was a tough start for him. He'd never thrown 2 interceptions in the first quarter in his career, and he finished throwing 3 on the day. My first thought when something like this happens is I jump right into conspiracy mode. First of all, I should mention I'm pro Jets, and my main man, Joe Douglas, is their general manager. Joe went to Richmond with me on the football team with me. I consider him a friend, not a good friend, not somebody I keep in touch with, but I certainly pull for Joe Douglas and the Jets. Let's look at their last 3 coaches, including Robert Saleh, right? We go all the way back, or excuse me. This is the worst winning percentage for Jets coaches in a maximum of 40 games. Robert Saleh is at the top of that list. His winning percentage, 357, right? He's 20-36. So for any Jets coach that has coached for more than 40 games, Robert Saleh has the worst winning percentage. Second to him is Todd Bowles, who had a 37% winning percentage at 24-30. And then Bruce Coslett, if you remember him from the 90s, also a Bengals coach, 26-38. He was 40%. Remember, we're not talking about Adam Gase, and we're not talking about Rich Kotite. Those guys didn't coach enough games to be a part of this group. Robert Saleh losing his job. This is the first Jets coach to be fired in the season since Lou Holtz, which is a very, very long time ago. And it speaks to the urgency of this move for the New York Jets and their organization. First, quickly, I thought when I saw this, and this isn't conspiracy, this is the truth. I'll get to the conspiracy thing in a moment, which is probably wrong, but this is what I thought about. Robert Saleh might be the least important guy in the Jets building right now. When you talk about removal of Robert Saleh, does that take the problems away? No, it probably could retool the vibe and maybe the culture a little bit. But you talk to anybody, especially a guy like Robert Saleh, who's not like a Bill Belichick or Bill Parcells, like as far as an overwhelming personality is concerned. The team really runs that locker room. And you could say a big part of the team and their leadership is Aaron Rodgers. Now, we know Aaron Rodgers is a different type of leader. We also know that a lot of his teammates and the players like Aaron Rodgers historically, right? He's a guy who gets along with his teammates no matter how different he may be from them. That's something in football. You walk into a football locker room, you have like all these different, you could almost call them neighborhoods, right? Like there's a neighborhood over there with guys who are different from the neighborhood over there. And when it comes to Sunday, all these neighborhoods come together, right? And they make up a real big city, and you want your city to kick some ass. There are certain guys, Brett Favre is one who comes to mind right away, who are able to roll around and hang in all the different neighborhoods. And there's not many guys on a team that can do that. Quarterbacks, though, are motivated to find a way to do that, but to some guys it comes naturally. I think it came natural to Favre, from by all accounts, especially from the book on his life I read. And I think it comes naturally to Aaron Rodgers to appeal to some of his teammates and to get along with them, no matter how different they may be. But make no mistake, by all accounts right now, Aaron Rodgers is the reason behind this firing. And not necessarily like he's a coach killer, but I think anyone that's coaching Aaron Rodgers at this phase in Aaron Rodgers' career is on the clock right away, because we don't have much time left with this guy, us as fans, and also the Jets as an organization. So Robert Saleh was on the clock. He started off 2-3. They were 2-1 at one point in time, but not quite sure about the direction of this team. When the news broke, Adam Schefter, and I love everything about this, by the way. First Take is going on. They get breaking news. The reaction is as though there's a fire in the building, which is kind of what you want from your sports people. This is the biggest story in the world, right? It's like, hey, hold on. We got breaking news. Hold on. And then they get Schefter, who looks like he's in the back of a car or an Uber, or who knows, maybe a family member's driving. I'm not there, but you watch this video and you'll understand what I'm talking about. But here's Adam Schefter breaking down this trade in the immediate aftermath. Take a listen.
Defensive coordinator is going to be taking over for Robert Saleh as he becomes the first head coach to be let go during this season. He's got a year left on his contract after this season, but even this still is surprising. Now, this is a team, I think, that had looked a little off recently. They weren't looking exactly the way they should, and the Jets felt like they needed to do something to try to get this team back, and they told Robert Saleh of this decision here minutes ago.
Adam, Woody, the owner for the Jets, has never fired a coach in season, as far as I remember. Why now? What was the tipping point that made this happen right now, as opposed to a few more games or even getting through the season? Why now?
I think that they believe that they have a really good team. I think that they think this team, especially in that division, can compete to win the division, and it wasn't performing the way that everybody expected. If we watch this team, everybody would admit, every Jet fan, it looked off. They lost at home to Denver. They lost to Minnesota. What's odd is in this day and age, in the National Football League, there are peaks and valleys to every team season. Everybody goes through them. But with the pressure in New York, I just feel like they felt like this is a team that should be performing better, winning more often, and Woody Johnson didn't want to squander what could potentially be the last year of Aaron Rodgers' career. We don't know if we'll see Aaron Rodgers again. They went out and traded for him last year with the idea that he was going to bring back this franchise.
Okay, so we hear there, that's Adam Schefter kind of giving us the nuts and bolts. And also when a guy like Adam Schefter says, I think, that's his way of saying, in my opinion, here's what I know that the Jets are feeling right now. He just doesn't want to put a name on it. Robert Saleh, I want to give you some breaking news or some developing news as part of this situation. We're now hearing from Robert Saleh saying that he was blindsided by owner Woody Johnson walking into his office and telling him he was making a coaching change. This is according to Jay Glazer of Fox Sports. Saleh told Glazer he was certainly disappointed he wasn't going to be given the opportunity to get things going with what he said is a very good roster. Moving on to more of this. Again, this is all according to Jay Glazer. And then it just gets into, as I continue to read this article, yeah, the Jets had Super Bowl hopes. Saleh 45, 20-36 record. So By the way, security walked him out. That's what happens when you get fired at any job and you're in the building. So it's not like he was throwing like a tantrum and they had to drag him out. That's what goes on. So it started in the offseason, if you think about it, when Aaron Rodgers, who always had attended those OTA workouts, he didn't go because he missed a mini camp because he took a trip to Egypt. Maybe that's not off to the right foot, whatever. That's just something that immediately comes to memory. Remember, stories like this now are bigger than us. And there are people who know exactly what's going on, and they're not in this building here on the 21st floor at the Alico. And they're certainly not down on the front water or down on Water Street or wherever that ESPN studio is in the southern part of New York City. They're in the Jets building. And I would think, and this is where it goes back to what I started with, like, you've got two amazing coaches that are on the street right now. Mike Vrabel and, of course, Bill Belichick, right? Now, of course, like, I couldn't imagine you make a coaching change in the middle of this season of that magnitude to bring on a head coach like Bill Belichick. Like, this isn't quite like an operation in the NBA where the Milwaukee Bucks have a dismal start or not even a dismal start. They had actually a great start. I think they were still in first place, but they fired Adrian Griffin in favor of Doc Rivers. Basketball is different in that regard, especially when you just look at a staff. Football coaches are way more married to their staffs and the entirety of it. So you bring in a new head football coach, he will bring in an operation unto itself. So if you're thinking, okay, is Bill Belichick going to be a part of this situation immediately? No. Now, does Woody Johnson, who I'm sure has a relationship with Bill Belichick, find a way to talk to Bill Belichick and say, hey, are you interested in this job if we were to make this move? And Bill Belichick says, sure. Yeah, like, that is a real possibility. We have no idea if that happened, but that's where my mind goes. And, maybe next year Bill Belichick is the coach of this team. And right now we have Jeff Ulbrich and a change of culture underway for the New York Jets, who everyone feels as though Joe Douglas has put together an exceptional roster that is certainly a winning roster. We heard, or the potential to be a winning roster. Saleh in his comments to Jay Glazer. I mean, and that's sort of a class act to totally take the blame himself, say, hey, I didn't get a chance to get my hands dirty and get involved with what I feel is a very good roster. So a lot going on in New York. These stories are not fun because, lives change no matter how much money you're making, like now you're Robert Saleh, like your whole life just got turned upside down. And we're talking about people's families and all that stuff being involved. So that's a bummer. At the end of the day, he's a very wealthy man, so he can't feel too bad. But I don't like to see anybody get fired. So we'll come back with Cam Stewart. We're going to talk to Matt Mosley, who is always on the Cowboys beat, about where the Cowboys go from here. One more game before the bye week. And we talk with Cam coming up next about some stories coming out of New England. Jabrill Peppers connected to a very serious allegation and arrest over the weekend. And also, of course, Lou Tiant, a Boston Red Sox legend, dying today. So the Pete Sousa Show, powered by the Rogue Media Network, and, of course, those kolaches at Slovacek's, rolls on after this.
It's the Pete Sousa Show. Sports, Pete.
Cam Stewart joins us in studio here at the Pete Sousa Show. A sad day for folks in New England, Cam. Louis Tiant is a name that I think rings a bell with a lot of sports fans. A Boston Red Sox legend. But I believe not a lot of sports fans really know who he is or what he was all about.
Unfortunately, I think that is the case, Pete.
Because with a name like Louis Tiant, people are like, oh, yeah, Louis Tiant. But really, myself, like my curiosity, without diving into the obituary, curiously, like I do want to know what was he all about and what's his legacy?
Oh, El Tiante. What a pitcher, man. What a pitcher. 230 wins, pitched for 19 years. Part of the legacy gets lost in the fact that he, outside of those 6 years with the Red Sox, he didn't pitch for good teams. He pitched for Cleveland before that and then bounced around a little bit towards the end of his career. But
Did he go after somebody with a bat? Was that him?
No, that was Juan Marichal.
Okay, all right.
You're getting your Latin pitchers mixed up. Come on.
Okay.
No, but what Louis Tiant is actually probably most famous for is his delivery, his windup. He would bring it over his head, and then he would turn, so his back would be to the batter. And if I was not zoomed in so much, I'd try to do it for you. But he would turn, then throw, and that was like, whoa, Louis Tiant, man, just a showman, but was also a really good pitcher, man. He won the ERA title twice. You look at like his advanced stats, which I understand they didn't have back then, but he was as good as almost any pitcher in that era. And on my show, I actually put him head-to-head against Catfish Hunter, who is someone that everyone knows, partially because of the name, but also because he's a Hall of Fame pitcher who won a ton of championships. And like the percentage stats, not just the counting stats, Louis Tiant is just as good, if not better, than Catfish Hunter. When you look at things like ERA plus, and WAR, again, most of those numbers I know they didn't have, but like this guy is just as every right as most of the pitchers who went in at that time. You know, Catfish Hunter and Jim Bunning, the numbers aren't better, but the similarity scores are right there.
Perfect game on Father's Day for the Phillies.
So he's great. Don Sutton got better numbers than Don Sutton. If you want to go into some different eras, guys like Jack Morris, who got in the last year of his ballot, Tiant's got better numbers than him. His numbers are just right there with Burt Blyleven, who's in the Hall of Fame.
How was Tiant in the postseason?
Very good.
Very good. Really?
Yeah, I don't have the postseason numbers in front of me, but he actually was not having a great year in 75. By the way, I don't know if you heard this on my show, but the Bulldozer, my dad, has offered his services anytime after today to talk about Louis Tiant. So I think we'll have him on tomorrow. He knows way more about Louis Tiant, like the ins and outs of his career, than Pete Rose for sure.
Okay.
But 75, he was not actually having a great season. I think he was 18-14 that year, ERA almost 4 or so. And Dick Drago actually led the Red Sox in wins that year. And in the postseason, Tiant was like money. He was lights out. And one of the things that my dad talked about in that Pete Rose thing about that 75 World Series was like this great emotional storyline was in the middle of the series, Louis Tiant's dad was at the games. And so Tiant himself had defected from Cuba, early days of Castro, like ugly early days of Castro. And he had been pitching in the league since
like Jose
64,
Menendez,
65. Yeah, absolutely. One and the same. And so his parents, his family was there for 10 years. They didn't see him pitch, and they got his dad to the US for the 75 World Series. And, you know, I mean, Tiant's doing the back to the batter thing. He's striking out Pete Rose and Tony Perez and Joe Morgan and Johnny Bench and these all-time greats, and they're going to the stands, and his dad is going nuts. And it's like, you watch it, it brings tears to your eyes. This great story. And one thing about Tiant, too, that I just couldn't help but mention in this comparison, because he died at age 83 today. Pete Rose died at age 83 last week. They're both intertwined by one of the great World Series ever played in 75. And it's really sad that neither one of them will see themselves get into the Hall of Fame, even though they both, I think, deserve to be in the Hall of Fame, had Hall of Fame careers. But one of them was never banned from baseball. One of them did not have some pretty ugly charges against them, a statutory rape charge against them. One of them didn't have to rehab his image for years and just couldn't do it. Like, I'm not saying that Pete Rose is like the most evil person to play baseball, but it's just one of those things you think about, right? Of like, Louis Tiant never had a problem with baseball because he didn't gamble on his own baseball games. But he was also like a really great guy, an ambassador for the game, had a ton of fun playing the game, wasn't booed in all these stadiums he went to, didn't have to call on, his former teammates and colleagues to stick up for him in the eyes of the game, in the eyes of baseball. Louis Tiant never had to do that. And so it's like, I'll take my Louis Tiant over all the baggage that comes with a Pete Rose in some respect.
Why isn't Tiant in?
I think honestly what it comes down to is they get in basically every era before this era we're in right now gets bogged down by counting stats a little too much, I think. And so like I talked about Don Sutton in there as well. Don Sutton won 324 games, but he also lost about 260.
Tiant won 299.
229.
229,
yeah.
Sorry. Okay.
So and he's a better winning percentage over almost the same length career that Don Sutton had. And Tiant was an ace for 12, 14 years. Don Sutton was never better than the second best pitcher on his own team. And like I think there's something that goes with that. So he doesn't hit any of the traditional counting stat milestones. He doesn't have 3,000 strikeouts. He's well short of 300 wins. And the farther we get from those counting stats, which inevitably is happening right now with pitchers, we're going to look back at that in 10, 20 years and say, how the hell did this guy not get in? You know what I mean? I went over his ERA plus. Number you didn't have back then, but it shows your ERA against the league average, which the league average back then was better than it is now in the 70s. And he was over 120 8 times in his career. So 8 times he was at least 20% better than the league average starting pitcher. Like there's something to be said for that. Yeah. So I think there's a lot of that he doesn't hit the counting stats. And the last couple of years of his career were pretty forgettable. The same way like Andrew Jones.
He had a 19-year career. I'm reading here. So I mean, like, yeah, that's par for the course.
You look at a guy like Andrew Jones' career, a guy who's been a hot topic in Hall of Fame debates the last few years. He played himself out of a Hall of Fame career the last 3 or 4 years. And to your point, I'm like, well, that might not be enough for me.
Yeah.
When you have 15 years at the top, and Tiant, you look at his peak, it's a good 10, 12 years where he is a top 6 to 8 pitcher in the league.
Was he on contending teams with
not a ton? With the Red Sox, he was.
Well, the Yankees, I would imagine they probably made a run.
Yeah. Do you have his year that he was there?
No.
At the Yankees, because they don't make the postseason between 82 and 95.
Okay.
And I think he was there around like 80, 81.
Okay.
So like decent teams. Yeah, they're coming off World Series at that point. But yeah, like each year with the Red Sox, they were competitive. 74, they were in it till the final month of the season.
Yeah, he was with the Yankees
72, they were in the championship series.
So 79, 80 with the Yankees. No,
so they're kind of on the decline.
Yeah,
at that point.
He just missed.
I mean, he's in year 17 and 18 at that point.
Yeah, and he just missed with I imagine Pittsburgh in 81. That was right after the We Are family and the Angels. I think the Angels did win. Oh, in 82, the Angels and Gene Mauch absolutely blew. Gene Mauch blew a huge series lead with the Phillies in the 60s, which he was never able to live down. And in 82, they had a huge lead, and they blew that lead in 82. Now, ultimately,
was Don Baylor the MVP that year? No, that's 79. I think he was 79.
And then he retired and came back because he was with the Angels for a while. Mauch was, and when he came back, he was there for the 86 season that they
3-1.
Yeah. To your
when
Sox.
No one did that back then. No one blew 3-1s. Yeah, and so I mean, think about it in that context then. So the last couple of years of his career, at the end of his career, contending teams want him on their team.
Let me text him.
That's not hey, you get in the Hall of Fame because contending teams want you at the end of your career, but that also proves something. And I mean, Cleveland was not a contender at all.
Yeah.
And he got to the Red Sox in 72. He probably had 8 or 9 years in Cleveland where he was in his prime, or at least the beginning of his prime, and the team wasn't any good. So, yeah, he and I mentioned this too about him being a great guy. He settled down in the Boston area after that. And he had a place outside of Fenway on what was then Yawkey Way, El Tiante Grill. And he would be there 60, 65 home games a year, sitting out there, signing autographs to anyone that came by free. He didn't pay for an autograph. Pete Rose, take some notes there. Shit. I have some sympathy for that. But free, would sign pictures, sign hats, and like literally tell stories. I had a picture of me with Louis Tiant in our show.
Oh,
and my
really?
dad's got one too. Yep. And like,
what was your interaction like with him?
it was great. He just sits at this bar stool and, you know, I was there with my dad and he was talking about
how old were you at the time?
I was in like high school. I was like 16 or 17.
That's
so,
an impressionable time. So you
yeah,
walk
but I
in
wasn't
there.
like 10. You know what I mean?
Yes. So you walk in there with your father.
Yep.
And do you guys go in there solely to meet Louis Tiant? You know that's going to be your opportunity.
Yeah, he's like outside. So we're like in through the gates or going to a game. And yeah, you know, it's never a long line because he's there all the time. And so, yeah, you like kind of wait, say, hey, Louis, can we take a picture? And then we'll just talk some baseball. And I remember him talking about, 75, the World Series, but also a game where Louis threw, I want to say it was 170 pitches in a game. I think it was 169 pitches.
Wow.
I'd have to double check that. And
wow.
Like my dad just said, you know, I remember that game. I was watching it here and I just thought it was, you know, incredible feat. We're never going to see that again. You know, Nolan Ryan threw like 200 in a game once. And Louis was great about it. He laughed about it, talked about that game, talked about some of his teammates, the misconceptions around some of the Red Sox at that time. Fred Lynn, who was there, who's at Red Sox games all the time. He's talking about Fred Lynn. Just could not have been nicer. I mean, again, this was almost 10 years ago, so he's probably almost 75.
Yeah.
Sitting down, just having the fucking time of his life, man. Smoking a cigar and talking about his baseball career and baseball in general. I found this fascinating. I didn't even know this till today. He did some work with like the Red Sox farm league teams. He was like a pitching coach for the single A team or something like that. He was always involved in baseball. And for 4 years in the late 90s, he did like a favor for a friend and started coaching the baseball team at SCAD, Savannah College of Art and Design. He was coaching their baseball. He won like 40% of their games, but I'm like, that's a baseball guy right there.
Yes.
Like he's taking a bunch of like artsy fartsy kids who are going to write anime after college and he's coaching them in baseball. Like that's so cool.
Well, I want to go from one guy because I got
the best
you here.
baseball team in Savannah. Yeah.
Well, while I got you here, I want to go over one more thing, maybe two more things with you. We'll hit pretty quick. We got Matt Mosley coming up at 1:45. So a guy who's not being so celebrated right now, maybe there's some understanding around the scenario. You know it way better than me. Jabrill Peppers.
Yeah.
What have you learned about that arrest? Take us into the arrest. Because a lot of times
I'll take you in there. Boots on the ground.
A lot of times we just get inundated with all these alerts to our phone and this guy got arrested, and we don't know what happened. And we let the judge, the jury, and the executioner free in our own mind right away. And now this guy is a bad guy. What's the story?
Well, this might be one where you do dig into the details and it gets worse. So we had heard 911 call, assault with a deadly weapon, which automatically you're like, okay, this is not good, right? But what's going on here? So apparently, according to the 911 caller, he had a woman who I'm guessing is his girlfriend. We have not received, I don't think, full confirmation on that, but all things point to that, that he had hit her, choked her, basically taken her clothes off and threw her out of the condo. And that's how this at 4:15 on a Saturday morning, that's how this 911 call came in. And they went in there and, they questioning him. They find some powdery substance in his wallet and he tells them, yep, that's coke. He told them that, according to the police report. So this is not looking terrific for Jabrill Peppers. Now, his defense attorney says they have evidence against the claims that would prove these claims false. And you have to go through the due process. Sometimes these things are cooked up, sometimes, not all the time. But it doesn't sound great. And there were witnesses to some extent. It was a 911 caller who was not one of these two parties here.
Oh, okay. So it wasn't the woman who called.
Correct. From what I've read in the local news reports. So,
which now we're getting to speculation, which is another word for guessing.
Yeah.
But it's not like she called it in.
From the reports, that's what it's saying. That someone else called it in. Yeah.
Okay. Which I don't know. Whatever means like it might cooked up as I called it in right away. You know what I mean? Like I made it up. I called it in.
Right.
So again, we'll see. Sometimes this stuff turns into be complete BS. I mean,
and sometimes it's just a loud argument, and all of a sudden the cops come and you can say something and. It can really fuck with somebody, but I'm not saying that's what happened, but that's what we've seen that. Like,
what does he mean to the Patriots?
Defensive captain, man. And I mean, you got to take it into context. The Patriots really suck. Like, they're the worst team in the league probably, but he has been a valuable defensive player for them the last couple of years, like very valuable.
He was already going to be out last week.
Yes. Yeah. Yes. Had a legit injury.
Yeah.
And you know what they say, marijuana can be great for injuries and things like that. I'm sure they say the same thing about coke.
No, they don't.
It just really mellows you out. You don't feel it.
No.
But yes, he was already.
That's an activator, right? Now you're moving around on those injured limbs.
He might have been the best defensive player they've had the last 2 years with how often Judon was hurt. Good
Michigan
player. Heisman finalist. Yeah. And like, he's 29, so he's probably about to hit the back nine of his career. But
I think he's
really
30.
solid
I saw he's 30.
Really solid defensive player, versatile player. But for whatever that's worth for a team that's this bad. Any
off the field information that you've gathered about him, like over the course of you being a fan and following the Patriots?
Yeah, no real story. No, about him.
Good guy, bad guy.
Seemed like a good guy.
Yeah,
and was one of those that, like, you throw out in front of the media. I know NFL's different from college, but if it was here at Baylor, they would throw him out in front of the media every week. You know what I mean? No matter what he was doing on the field, because he was, good, affable.
That says a lot.
Of thing. Yeah, and a captain. Like, I mean, say what you want. Like, there's these problems all around the NFL. I had someone comment on a video about it on one of my videos about Jabrill Peppers and was like, "Oh, the Patriot way," and I was like, "Unfortunately, this is about every team's way in the NFL." Like, that's just kind of the nature of the beast. This unfortunately happens. You could point to a player on almost any team that something like this has happened to. That's not a good thing, but it's not just the Patriots. But like, to be a captain, that's a big thing, and especially for a franchise that still has some pride. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, that's not an insignificant thing.
All right, we touched on, this will be the last thing, about players and talking to the media. Last week, the NFL Players Association really, they're pushing back against locker rooms being open.
Mm-hmm.
And I know it's interesting because we talk about it from a college perspective where those locker rooms don't open for the media and they march out a couple guys, whoever they want, really. And in the NFL, you got a 53-man roster. And hey, you look at it and sometimes there's like 5 or 6 guys who things happen with, or maybe more, where you want to go in the locker room and try to talk to those guys. It's the only place you can grab them. But now the league, the Players Association is saying, we don't want this to happen anymore. How do you think, what are your thoughts on this?
I honestly don't really mind it, as someone who does not cover the NFL and only covers college football, and one that is a program that keeps it very close to the vest with Baylor. Like, I don't mind it. I think there's a way that they can do it that satisfies everyone.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I think I was thinking about this last night. Could you do almost like a breakout session thing where you would do in media days, where you bring, to your point, 5 or 6 guys out there, not 2.
Yeah.
You bring 5 or 6 guys out there, like, on the field 30 minutes after the game. And you say, okay, these guys will be available for 25 minutes. Anyone come through, like a breakout session at a media day. And if you don't want to talk to them, you don't have to talk to them. We'll do the coach first in a press conference setting, and then we'll have breakout sessions with the players. I think there's a way to do that.
There's another side to it. There's another side to it as well, though. Like, it is, look, having worked in PR in the NBA, it's kind of weird. I mean, it's archaic.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
But there's
no other profession that has that.
No, but there's a reason why they do it. Because it's the one place where you can get everybody on an entire team. And sometimes guys will go right out the back, or they'll hang out in the training room and you can't get to them, and maybe they'll get fined, maybe they won't. But now you're asking them, okay, now you're done here. You're going to have to go spend another 30 minutes in that room.
Yeah.
Guys want to get the hell out of there. So it's like,
that's why it's an imperfect science.
Yeah, but and it's so, as much as these guys don't want this, it is like, look, these media guys, they have jobs, they have deadlines, but not like they used to. That's
Correct.
another thing you
Yep.
could say. Like, okay, time is not so much of the essence, media guy. You can now wait outside until we're ready. But the players are really going to have to cooperate with a whole new situation of their, as Hoda Kotb said last week, their time pie, right?
Right.
Hoda's
And
leaving
would
because she
say-
doesn't have her time pie.
I would
it's
say
filling
also
up.
from the player's standpoint, it's like I get that because that stinks. You know how quickly I can leave an event. I don't love sticking around.
Yeah.
But it's like, okay, would you rather have this where you're going to stick around a little bit longer, or do you want them in the locker room?
Exactly.
You can't have everything. And I get why that's different from
Minahan.
every other job. Can't have everything. Peter
Can't have everything
Minahan
in
told
life.
Kirk. Yeah.
Yeah. But it's so weird. And some guys, I work with guys who, was it Gerald Wallace or somebody?
Probably. He played for the Bobcats.
Yeah. Guys won't turn around until they're totally dressed and ready. So they'll be, you hit the game-winning shot, you're at your locker, and you're not going to turn around to this horde of people who is waiting for you till you're ready. Could be 5 minutes.
It's a weird thing.
Could be
man.
10 minutes. You're
Yep.
buck naked. You've got your whole backside showing to them. You're going to get dressed. You're going to put your clothes on. You're going to put your cologne on. You're going to put your cream on.
By the way, we had somebody in Studio 2 here yesterday
Yeah.
that was just loading up on cologne. My God. I had to go in there to do a coach's show. Anyway, sorry. That's
No, but it's like,
take away
and
from
all
it.
these people are waiting. Like,
There's no other job like
it's
that.
a hilarious
it's a
process.
Weird, it's a weird human nature thing
Yeah.
that
And
we
it's
just,
not
we
the-
just accept.
and that is not a player being a diva. That's
No,
a human
it's-
being
yeah.
setting a boundary.
Yeah.
Like, you guys you're going to have to wait. I'm going to talk to you and give you everything you need, but you're just going to have to wait till I'm ready. And then some guys here's the last open locker room story, and then you got to go. This is a good one. Preseason game in Fayetteville, North Carolina.
Okay.
My first road game ever with the Charlotte Bobcats. They're playing Antoine Walker and the Atlanta Hawks, right?
Twan, baby.
Yeah. So we played in
He
an
just left the Celtics, basically.
yes.
Yeah.
We played in a
Very
D
cute.
League city, to promote the game. So Walker has 20 points and 20 rebounds in a preseason game. And so there's really no media, but the team, we have to get quotes for the media too, who's not there. And it was just me and this other guy, BJ Evans, who now does the Cleveland Cavaliers PR. He runs the whole thing. So he's like, hey, go in there and get a quote from Antoine Walker. We have to talk to him. He had 20 and 20 first game, maybe with the Hawks, leaving the Celtics. I'm like, okay. I walk in there, and I had been in locker rooms as part of like my relationship with football. But I walk in there, he's buck naked, right? Knees on both of his ice on both of his knees, all of his manhood just hanging out. Sitting down.
Naked? Okay.
And I go, I'm nervous. I'm like walking in. It's just me and him. It's like almost like, at least that's how I remember it. I'm like, hey, Antoine. He's like, what's up, babe? I'm like,
Same way you answered the phone 20
Yeah.
minutes ago, by the way.
I go, Antoine, would you mind telling me about your 2020? And he was just as cool as can be, like whatever. But I remember so vividly walking in there, being so nervous and being like, Antoine, can I? He's like, what's up, babe? Like, he was just like,
Sure thing, man.
yeah, no big deal at all. So, all right. Cam, you can catch him today, of course, on the Matt Mosley Show, as we got Matt Mosley coming up next. ESPN Central Texas. Bruins, their season starts tonight. Drake Toll might have to be put on ice himself.
I might have some money out of this, actually.
You might, Drake may be paying. We
Might demand
need,
a price.
there's an appointment with Locked On Big 12. And Cam and Kevin Borba and all the guys. We'll see how that turns out. But also make sure you watch the Cam Show here tomorrow, 11 a.m.
Lou
Central on the
Tiant.
Rogue Media Network. The Pete Sousa Show, powered by Rogue Media. We'll be right back.
It's the Pete Sousa Show. Sports, Pete.
The 10.
All right. All right, I'm ready when you are.
All right, at least tell me, Matt Mosley joining us now. At least tell me you are winning right now.
Oh, that's what's funny is I didn't know I was on live. I may have even composed myself a bit more. I did, I thought we would be finished by our appointed hour, but then with 4 minutes remaining, with a 5-4 win, I did prevail 6-4, but my playing partner's a little upset because I was kind of quick serving him and, trying to get to you. So I fear this victory has an asterisk on it. So that's where we are in this thing, but yet another Mosley victory. So feeling
you finished
okay
them off.
about
It's
it.
over.
Yeah. We only had time for one set. So, I mean, this isn't freaking Wimbledon. We're not going to go first 1 to 3 or anything. I mean, if we did 2 sets, we'd both be in the hospital. But yeah, it was a. I don't know if I would say it's a satisfying. But yeah, it's over.
All right, so it's certainly not over for the Dallas Cowboys. They had a resilient win on the road in Pittsburgh. Look, Matt, on the road, winning, especially on a Sunday night in the NFL, is a big deal. I don't care who you beat. And the Cowboys seem to have, at least temporarily, or from my eye, they seem to have fixed some of the problems that were so worrisome early on. A lack of running game and the ability to stop the run. Is that for real, or was that just these past couple matchups?
Well, I mean, I think the most impressive part of what you just mentioned was the stopping the run part of it, especially with Nealon getting hurt early in that game. And they were down to, I mean, Lawson, Tyrus Wheat. They were just running a lot of, even they got a nice performance from Linval Joseph, who's about 10 years removed from being good. And so I think this was a credibility win for Mike Zimmer, but I do love how the night and day commentary that goes on here. It's like the people that are Dak Prescott defenders point to this as some kind of, oh, look at him. I can't believe he has any doubters. Yet the entire reason they needed to have that final drive was because of mistakes that he had made. And he put it, with the red zone fumble and the second interception, or the first interception, was just crazy. I mean, just kind of winging it up there. Again, a red zone turnover. So it's like what should be the least of your worries, which is the quarterback. To me, I came out of that game, you're happy he was able to go down there and win the game, but man, he makes some head scratching plays, and then CD's continued vanishing act in the second halves of games. I think is a huge problem. So I guess if you want to be excited about something, I would say what Zimmer did was pretty remarkable from a defensive standpoint. And then on the offensive end, I don't know if they fixed anything, but I think you got to credit McCarthy for not. He's wired to abandon the run. He naturally is not a guy who likes to lean on the run that much, and yet he did it, and he kept calling for it. And Dowdle gave him a little something. So they may have found something. They may have a, I think they showed if they commit to it, then it can be somewhat productive. And then, also remember they were doing a lot of that with like backup guards. They had to move, Smith out to left tackle with Guyton hurt. So, I mean, they had to overcome a lot to get that done.
What do you make of the off the field stuff? I mean, knuckleheads like me are talking about that, but I would imagine you and Ed Werder on the Doomsday podcast that you can hear here on Rogue Media Network have kind of graduated for how long you've covered the team. And even I know football well enough to not get too caught up in that stuff, right? I mean, especially being a a player once upon a time myself. Like, you go over on the sidelines, you can't just hit an off switch where the emotions are turned off, and we don't even know what was said by CeeDee Lamb to Dak. Take us inside that relationship a little bit as far as what you know and the status of it. Those guys get along, or is there dissension, or is it just football stuff?
Well, I mean, since the beginning of time and beginning of football, you know, especially given the last 20 years, I would say receivers are just naturally divas, and they want the ball. And I think the peak diva was probably T.O. And listen, absolutely CD has that club in his bag. The more I've looked at that interaction, and you know, NBC kind of they captured that image, which was good, but then they were kind of like, "Boy, it doesn't look good. The people that seem to be the lip readers, the professional lip readers, seem to think he was saying jump ball 4, you know, throw the jump ball. And I think just like any quarterback and receiver, I think there's some natural built-in tension from time to time. I mean, think about what's getting made of Stephon Diggs and Josh Allen. They don't even play together anymore. I mean, you know, it's like they're meeting after the game, and that little side eye that Diggs gave him. And then, of course, Diggs is in the news for some other stuff too, but that's way, way off the field. I do not try to dabble in whatever that stuff is, but I don't really think that much of it. I mean, I think Dak is pretty good, and most quarterbacks are pretty good at tuning that stuff out. I mean, like, one of the most famous NFL films things that you'll see a lot that pops up is Peyton Manning and Jeff Saturday just teeing off on each other over there and the offensive line. And, you know, those guys are like best friends. And
how about the one that goes all the way back to Kellen Winslow and Dan Fouts? Again, two guys who had a magical relationship on and off the field.
Sure. And Aikman would kill those guys, his linemen and stuff, like the stuff Aikman would say to them over on the sideline. It makes this stuff look like nothing. So again, the whatever he's doing over there didn't seem like a big deal to me at all. The big deal is, I think this season he's got like 5 catches for 25 yards in the second half. Like, why is he disappearing in games? Is that McCarthy? Is that the defense taking it away? Is that Dak? Is it CD? I mean, he's doing this, and Amari used to do that too. Amari used to like have these incredible games, and then, man, he would have these disappearing acts. And then I can remember famously there being a game where the game was on the line and that dude was on the sideline. Like, they had him on, it was at the end of a game, and I can't remember exactly who it was against, maybe Cleveland, maybe the Patriots, but they're down there in the red zone and he's on the sideline. So again, I that's my concern. The sideline stuff, I don't think is really anything. I don't see much to that. I mean, what are they going to do? What are they going to do? Like, leave? Or are they going to do? You think one of them's, you know, like they make $95 million a year. They're tied together for like the next 5 years. There's nothing that can happen, so they just have to solve it. Whatever's going on between them.
Lions are a 3-point favorite right now going into this Sunday's game, right before the bye, for the Cowboys. Your feelings going into the Motor City right now for Dallas?
Yeah, I mean, you know, the problem is the Cowboys have them coming into Arlington.
Yeah, they're going to Dallas. Yeah, my bad. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, that's okay. I think you were just referring to, you know, Detroit as Motor City, which is fine. I think that that's a problem. I think the Cowboys have kind of, I mean, that what they did in Pittsburgh, you know, kind of the us against them mentality. These games at home, the Ravens game and then that New Orleans game have been embarrassments. New Orleans now has kind of bottomed out a little bit. I mean, they haven't won a game since. They're 2-3 now. Ravens have got it going a little bit, but I'm just saying, like, Cowboys used to be a really, I mean, they had about a 2 or 3 year run where they were great at home, and so they've got to reestablish that. And I'm really anxious to see what they do against the Lions, because that's a team that's kind of got it going in the right direction. Have great pedigree, tremendous coach. But the last time we saw the Lions come through Dallas. Cowboys were able to escape, and it was very controversial at the end, as I recall. But I mean, a win over the Lions, and then I think the Cowboys we're feeling completely different about this team. And I think you were a little bit shocked when I said last week, yeah, I think the Cowboys could still make the playoffs.
Yeah,
and
no, you were right, man.
I just don't think. But again, you may be laughing at me next week when they get killed by the Lions and they're 3-3.
I appreciate, Matt, really,
Yeah.
And as somebody who I try to keep, we're such prisoners of the moment now, and you've been doing this for such a long time, right? The weekly excitement is what we love about the NFL, but the weekly reactions and the hysterics are sometimes what is hysterical about the NFL, right? That fan is short for fanatic. So it's fine, but it's also nice if you're someone in my shoes or your shoes, especially to kind of settle down and say, let's see the big picture here. It's a weekly deal. The Cowboys have already gone to the Super Bowl after beating up on Cleveland and then have fired their coach after losing that second game to Baltimore. I mean, it's mind-boggling, right? How quickly it happens.
Yeah, it is, and I think that if they could get, I've just seen when injured players return, and if Micah can go soon, boy, the impact a guy coming back can have. I saw it one time with DeMarcus Ware in New Orleans, and just his presence alone, he gave them like 13 snaps in that game, and it elevated the entire team. And so I think we need to watch these injuries, see who they start to get back. I think Bland's on the way back. Carson's on the way back. Parsons may not be that far away. So, I mean, that some of that's going to help. And then we got to really keep our eye on this offensive line situation. You know, Martin's fine, but yeah, I got to look at Guyton and got to look kind of where that line is. But boy, tremendous work by Smith the other night, sliding out. And in some ways, he kind of had his Larry Allen moment in that regard, because Larry early in his career showed great positional flex, and Tyler Smith may have that sort of ability.
Last question for you. Do you think they've discovered maybe a little bit of depth at the defensive line position too?
Well, maybe. I just think that, I don't know if it was a scheme. I don't know if it was maybe, they look so much more competent, and then to get the kind of penetration they got with the personnel they had, I mean, that was pretty remarkable. So I would say that this reflects more time with this defensive coordinator and a bigger comfort level. And in the middle of everybody telling them how horrible they were, they've actually stepped up and showed some pride. And they deserve a lot of credit for that, because, I mean, let's not act like all these guys they were rolling through there are not big names in the NFL, but they performed extremely well and gave the Cowboys a chance to win.
Matt Mosley on the Cowboys beat. You can catch the Doomsday podcast here on the Rogue Media Network immediately following Cowboys games. And, of course, you can catch him at 4:00 on ESPN Central Texas. Mosley, man, I appreciate it. They're always very thoughtful and great insight.
You bet. Another 6-4 win, and we'll continue this streak out here on the tennis courts. I'll talk to you soon.
All right, buddy. See you, Matt.
All right, bye.
All right, thanks to my main man, Matt Mosley, spending time joining us. Hopefully he can go get something to drink, and hopefully you can too. Who knows? Phillies are starting in a little bit. Maybe some of my folks in Philadelphia. It's got to be happy hour there soon, and hopefully it'll be happy hour later tonight for Phillies fans. That's just me being a homer. Thank you for joining us on the Pete Sousa Show. Of course, we love Ray. We love Slovacics. We will be back tomorrow. Until then, take care of yourself. The Pete Sousa Show, powered by the Rogue Media Network. Taking a break. We'll be back tomorrow.
It's the Pete Sousa Show. Sports, Pete.
We are Rogue Media Sports.